Thanks for joining us on another episode of the In the Game interview series. Today we've got Chris White with us, affectionately known as C-Dub. Chris, thanks for taking some time to talk with us.
Thank you so much for having me, man. Couldn't be happier talking to an old dear friend, respected colleague about the state of the game. Let's go, buddy.
So why don't you give us a little bit of your background, some of your playing experiences, and what kind of led you into coaching and where you're at now?
Grew up in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Would always go over to Chapel Hill and watch the women's UNC teams with Anson win a national title after national title. I didn't even know boys could play soccer, but my dad loved them, so he took me to all the games. I grew up thinking that it was a girls' game, and then all of a sudden I can play. Awesome. So I played goalkeeper, obviously, because I'm big and fat and slow. But I love the game. Played goalkeeper. Went to Division I, Colgate University. Played goalkeeper there. Had a great experience, and then went on to get the opportunity to play over in Australia for a year with some amazing, talented players. Blew my knee out. The writing was on the wall, so I came back to the U.S., started my sort of teaching and coaching career. Started coaching. Where did I start coaching? I started coaching at South Bronx High School in New York City, boys and girls varsity soccer teams. Took them to the playoffs. It was great. Then I went out to Salt Lake City, and because basically I was a teacher. I was a full-time teacher, and I was coaching on the side. So I was doing high school teaching, high school coaching. Then I went to Salt Lake, did the same thing. And in Salt Lake, things got bigger. I started doing ODP. I worked with Greg Moss, who's at Utah State now, and he's doing amazing things. So I've had, amazing mentors. Started coaching ODP in Utah, high school in Utah, club in Utah. Then I came back to the East Coast and took my first college job, which was Amherst College on the women's side as an assistant coach for Jen Hughes in the NESCAC. Incredible experience. She's brilliant. And she got my foot in the door, got me situated. Then I went to Colgate University, Kathy Braun, Chris McLean in the Patriot League. That's where I played on the men's side. Obviously, again, I was assistant on the women's side. From there, I went to the University of Miami. That was my first kind of big-time ACC job. Went down and worked at the University of Miami in the ACC. Beat Notre Dame when they were number one. Playing against, Crystal Dunn lit us up for 3 lefty goals. The scouting report was great, except we didn't know she had a left. It was amazing. Like every weekend, I think 7 games in a row, we played top 5 opponents. So it was incredible, just baptism by fire. From there, I went to Duke University. I worked for Robbie Church, biggest gentleman in the game as far as I'm concerned. Absolutely brilliant. Game management, player management, program management. And one of the things I love most about, aside from the sense of humor, working with Billy Lassane, who's now the head coach of Georgia, and Carlo Overbeck, the legendary captain from the national team. It's just the tactics, Robbie, we would just sit in meetings and just, okay, 3-5-2 against a 4-4-2, whatever formations. He knew exactly how to break down every formation possible. And I was taking so many notes. I learned so much from Robbie. I owe so much to him. From Duke, I figured I was ready to be a head coach now. So I took a job at Division II school. Robbie was like, what kind of job do you want? I was like, I want the worst team in America. So he said, yep, I got it for you. It's Chowan University down near the coast. And they want to turn their programs around in athletics and academically. And they got a great athletic director, great president, great administration. So went down there, spent 3 seasons with them. First year was 1-12. Probably my best coaching of my life to get 2 ties out of that group and 1 win. But, obviously we had to change everything. We focused on culture and bringing in the right kids. So we went from 1-12 to 8-6, which was top 5 turnaround. And then we went to 12-3 the 3rd year, another top 5 turnaround. And then in terms of winning and loss, improving. And then at that point, my friend, Chris Rosati, passed away. He had ALS and he passed away. And I just felt I can do more for this world. As he was passing away, he created a couple nonprofits. And I was just like, I can do more. Now we're on the top of the mountain. We had a freshman leading scorer in the country, Carolina Lucci, 7 kids, 7 freshmen on the all-conference team. Conference picked us 13 out of 14th. We finished 2nd. We were in 1st the whole year. We got offensive, defensive, freshman of the year. I mean, we ran the table, and I felt nothing because I didn't feel like I was having a big impact on, kind of fundamentally changing people's lives. These were already great kids, and they're just going to continue that. So that opportunity presented itself when Chris passed away. I said, look, I got to do something more. I can do more. And so I dropped everything on the first day of preseason. I walked in and announced to the team that I was stepping away. And I thought they were going to curse me out because we were talking about, march to the national championship, big, 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 bold, bold goals. And they all just started crying, and they were like, Coach, how can we possibly be mad at you? You're just doing what you already told us to do, which was make the world a better place. So they started crying, and they wished me the best of luck. And I was floored. And I was just so impressed with the quality of the kids that we have in that program that are still there, a lot of them. So at that point, I came up to Lewiston, Maine, and I knew there was a big Somali refugee population up here. And I thought, as a full-time teacher in South Bronx High School, I knew that these kids were probably not behaving as well as they could. That probably the academics are probably lagging. The success after high school is probably not as good as it could be. And the town's probably not doing too well, because Lewiston, Maine was basically a manufacturing town until the mills all closed in the 80s and 90s with NAFTA. And so you got a population that's not doing too well, and it's not a very diverse state. So they just don't have a lot of experience with diversity. And then all of a sudden you get this big influx, 6,000, 7,000 immigrants from East Africa, again, economically not rich. So it's like, what do you think's about to happen? So Lewiston right now is in crisis. The schools are in free fall. Essentially, I spent a full year full time with working with at-risk kids at Lewiston Middle School. So I know the state of the schools and the state of the community and the state of the families. So it's basically, now we're trying to do life skills through soccer. It's soccer, but more importantly, it's those rich life skills that you can teach through soccer. Like, I used to be a soccer coach. Now I feel like I'm more of a life skills coach, but it's just, to me, I love soccer 10 times more now, because I realize it's not just a game, it's a way of life, and it's a passion that can seriously transform kids' lives. And that's what we should be all about, I hope, but I'll shut up now.
Nah, you're on here to talk. They don't want to hear me talk. So, obviously that's a huge decision that you took on. And I can remember you called me as you were walking into that team meeting, and I was completely floored whenever you told me that you were going to leave right as you were starting. We were kind of talking about, our programs and going into preseason, some things we were going to do. And it was a very different conversation than I thought that we were going to have. But whenever you started to talk about it, you could hear the passion in your voice of how much you were really invested into going and making it work, So, I think that's something that really, it kind of made me think about what I'm doing a little bit and how I can kind of be a little bit better outside of the game as well. So, just my personal side of things, you kind of changed my philosophy a little bit too when you made that decision.
Nice. Well, you know how it is, Reed. I think we met at Duke Soccer Camp back in the day, and then spent a lot of summers down at ODP Regional Camp and stuff. So, I've been incredibly thankful and blessed to have had you sort of on speed dial for the last 3 or 4 years. So I always appreciate your feedback. I know you're going to shoot me straight, and I respect the hell out of your journey and your honesty and the way you impact kids and the way you've, turned program around and just done it with class. So, I'm very picky about the people that I spend a lot of time with, and you're one of them. And so thanks, man. Thank you, sir. You make me better every day, dude.
Try. So you started the program now. This is, how long have you had the program running now?
So 1.5 years. We started in January of 19. Basically just started 1 day a week. The whole program is predicated. Basically, when we got here, we realized that the standard, kind of soccer main, obviously kind of tries to organize soccer opportunities for, the population. Problem is, in Lewiston, Auburn, the best fields are over in Auburn, and there's a river between the two cities. And so what happens is, geographically and logistically speaking, it becomes a little bit more challenging to get where you want to go. With the downtown, what a lot of the kids in the downtown community have is this unbelievable passion to play soccer. Just soccer. Problem is, where are they going to play, and how do they pay to play? And what's really slapped me in the face over the last couple of years with this pay to play model we have in this country is that a lot of kids without money, but they do have the passion, they do have the ability, they do have the history and their culture, but they're basically told they can't play soccer. And it kills me to think that they can't have soccer. But to be honest, where the rubber meets the road is, soccer is this beautiful, valuable game with all these social requirements associated with it. How can we use this game that they love to teach the socio-emotional skills. What I say is the socio-emotional skills, that's the vegetables. Feeling good about yourself, respecting others, communicating, being honest, being a good teammate. Those things are important. But where the rubber really hits the road is how you interact with other people, how you carry yourself, how you can have success in all different environments in your life. So I think of it as the vegetables, the dessert. The dessert is a soccer. They love it. They'll do anything for it, but don't just give it to them. Let's force them through all the social hurdles and the emotional hurdles and the way of communicating and the way of, self-regulating, working with others, feeling good about yourself. It's all those social and wellness pieces. We do mindful breathing every single day in practice. We do share outs every day from school. What was your toughest moment and how did you get through it? Every week we have a mindfulness topic. One week it's let it go. That's probably our most successful one. Just let it go. Let it go. So all week in practice, we just keep hammering. What's today's topic? Let it go. Okay, you just got called for a handball. Instead of ripping off your jersey, losing your mind, cursing everybody out, can you let it go? And can we use those same skills in schools the next day? Like one of the biggest problems we have is our young people get a haircut, and for whatever reason, if they don't like the haircut, they'll refuse to take their hoodie off in school tomorrow. They get suspended. That makes them look bad. And that takes them away from their education, makes their family look bad, makes them feel bad. And it looks bad on the school and it looks bad on the district. And we're not moving forward. So it's like, I don't know. To me, it's very simple. We got these kids. Let's use the ice cream, which is the soccer, but let's force them to do that social emotional work. It's brilliant, man. It's amazing. I love it.
Yeah, it sounds like an incredibly immersive model, which is something that you don't necessarily get with a lot of club soccer nowadays.
Right. That's sort of, we're trying to address a couple things. One is we feel like the standard club model, 2 sessions a week in a game, that's just not really that consistent with the international and national models of player development. So what we've basically decided is, for a lot of reasons, we don't really care about games, because games mean you got to pay for uniforms, you got to travel, you got to pay for leagues, you got to pay for refs. There are all these variables that can get in the way of you rolling out programming and engaging kids. So we basically just tried to create the most simple, bare bones program we possibly could, so that it would never be shut down, and every single day that we're scheduled to have it, we have it. We started once a week, and we have to get, this is not a low income program. It's a no income program. These kids don't have phones, so you can't communicate. You can't, practice got switched from 4 to 5. Hit send on that text. That doesn't exist. So it's very challenging to communicate around schedules. So we have to be very consistent, and we have to be very proactive about handing out schedules all the time and communicating that. The whole thing was predicated on, it has to be walkable, because they don't have phones and they don't have cars and they don't have people that can drive them anywhere. So how do we meet the need? It's got to be local. It's got to be walkable. There are no soccer fields really walkable. There are, but they're used too much, and in the wintertime, the weather prohibits using them. So what do we think of? Okay, let's use a gym. We're in Maine. It's going to snow all the time. Let's use a gym so weather doesn't kill us. So basically, we had to find a gym that's walkable to downtown. And right now, I think there's only one, and we're using it, and it's the public school. So one of the incredible pieces to this story is the superintendent of schools in Lewiston is named Todd Finn. He's amazing. He just came in last summer, because Lewiston schools are in free fall. They brought him in to turn things around. And he listened to our presentation last summer, and he was like, he compared it to Stephen Jobs, the innovativeness. And he was like, he said he knew that this was a huge passion and a huge need in the community, because one of the first things he did when he took the job was, send out a questionnaire. What are the best programs that we need to keep? What are programs that we need more of? And he said the answer to both those questions was soccer. So we're meeting an exact need. We're following up with him. We're consistent with the school system, and he's the one that gives us free access to the gym space through the school system. So if it's free and it's walkable, now we got the kids, and the kids literally, and we go into the schools now. We've done outreach, because one administrator was like, if certain families are hearing that certain other families are getting something for free, they may not like it. So one thing we did to make sure that it was available and accessible to everybody, any ethnic background, any language, any national origin, any ethnicity, it's free, and it's open to anybody that wants to come. They just have to make the commitment to come almost every day. Again, the model of 2 sessions a week in a game, I don't believe in that. I believe in 4 sessions a week, 5 sessions a week, because from what I've seen, if you're training 3 times a week, you're treading water. If you're training 4 times a week, that's when you're improving. Plus, with the behavior and the social emotional things, I think it's very important to be consistent. Because at the end of the day, the kids that we work with, they're getting in a lot of trouble in schools almost every day. And if they don't have soccer to come to, there's not a whole lot else that they got going on. So we've been very proactive. We reached out to the schools. So now we're reaching out. There's 6 elementary schools in Lewiston. And so we're doing outreach. We've already done outreach to one of them. And the teachers are like begging for our phone numbers. And like the teachers, after we came to the school and did a little bit of a soccer piece during a half day, it was for a couple of reasons. It was to put a name and a face to all the teachers, because a lot of these teachers are having issues with their students. And if we have that student in common, now we're talking about creating a village. Hey, little Johnny had a tough day in school. He needs to start on a yellow card. That means a 20-minute break, because we use yellow cards and red cards just like soccer. So it's very consistent. The kids understand it. They don't argue against it. So yeah, it's an academy. So we try to go almost every day. It's got to be downtown. We're tied into the schools. As teachers are now coming to our practices. And when a tough kid sees their teacher come to their practice and watch them play and say, oh my God, you're so good, that fundamentally changes the relationship. And once that relationship changes, the deal, everything changes. So it's a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah.
We're really,
I can relate to the consistency of having something to go through, especially right now with me. I'm not getting in trouble, but I need that outlet as well.
Right. Just the exercise and the kind of state of mind. I feel the same way. Every once in a while now, I just feel like I'm drifting along in a river in a dream or something. It's hard.
Yeah. Crazy times for sure.
And we're doing everything we can right now to build our social media presence. We're working on a short video. We're working on the Facebook page, populating the content. We're working on our Instagram page, and there's a force piece, which basic website, because it's all going to be based on fundraising. Because I resigned, and we're creating a nonprofit, so I do not have a salary guaranteed. But at the end of the day, I'm the only one out right now, and the kids are getting the programming as soon as kind of the virus is over.
Yeah. Have you been able to kind of stay in touch with some of the families that have been involved through all this stuff?
That's one of the huge challenges. I've stayed in touch with my community organizers, who are kind of the adults in the community. One of them, a woman named Fosia Mouse. She's absolutely fantastic. She runs another nonprofit in downtown Lewiston, and she's Somali as well. So I speak to her. She's really got the ins and outs of the communities. With social distancing, we've just been constantly in contact, because we're a partnership, 3-part. Bates College, which is the NESCAC school that's in the town. The Lewiston Public Schools Department is 100% on board, and the Lewiston Rec Department. So it's sort of that triangle. So I've been keeping in constant contact with them to check the policies. When can we restart? What does that look like? Obviously the safety of the kids is by far number one. But we've never done this before. So it's a lot of communicating with other people, making sure we're doing the right thing. But again, if whoever's in charge says you can start tomorrow, we're going to start tomorrow. We're ready to go. I feel like there's a part of that question that I didn't answer though.
You're good. It's actually, you brought up Bates College. Are you guys involving the teams there, or is it just with some of the higher ups? How are they involved?
Bates has been absolutely incredible. They've helped us in a lot of ways. The first interaction was with their outreach department. They have a community outreach office, which is absolutely fantastic, super supportive. I first approached them, just told them about the idea, because I knew that Bates was very involved and very engaged and motivated to do anything they can to help and support and facilitate the town of Lewiston to do well socioeconomically. So I got in touch with them, and they've said, first of all, sounds like a great program. Let's keep in contact. The first thing that they did was they sent out a campus email, kind of describing the program and offering basically 2 volunteer positions and to Bates undergraduates who wanted to be volunteers. And so we did that. Originally we got 5 Bates volunteers. Since then, 4 of them have kind of, self-selected out. Working with volunteers is a different bag, because they're amazing, but on a day-to-day basis, life pops up and they're not always available. God bless them. So one Bates volunteer's name is, Kush Sharma. He's from Delhi. He's in New Delhi right now, back taking care of his family. He flew back as soon as this all sort of hit in February. and he's still incredibly involved. We still talk probably once a week about continuing to build the program. You know, he's a theater guy. He's a brilliant young man. He's very committed to social justice. Because at the end of the day, this is not a soccer program. It's a social justice program.
Yeah.
We use soccer.
Yeah.
So Kush has been absolutely amazing, especially with the social media. There's another young man on the men's soccer. So the Harvard Center, they got me in touch with Kush. Kush has been fantastic from day one. From there, it kind of morphed out. I reached out to the athletic director, and he was absolutely fantastic, very supportive. I asked him if maybe a strength and conditioning coach could come out, you know, once a year or something, just to, you know, the importance of stretching and those kind of behaviors and patterns and stuff. And plus just a bait shirt and talk about the college experience and that sort of journey. And he was incredibly supportive. And then I reached out specifically to the men's and women's soccer coaches, and the women's coach has been very supportive. He's been out to probably 2 or 3 of our sessions, Coach Vari. He's a fantastic new coach to Bates, and I'm sure that he's going to do a fantastic job with the program, because he's obviously interested in community outreach, community service associated with the program. And then we have a young man from the men's team as well. The men's coach apparently is very interested, but we just haven't had the chance to connect yet. And then one of the men's players, Alec, he's a transfer in from Holy Cross. He has an incredible interest and incredible motivation. And he as well has been working with me behind the scenes during this kind of virus timeout. So yeah, I think we're going to continue to really cultivate those relationships. We want to build out the sort of the volunteering. We hope that some of the men and women's student athletes may be able to come down and, but basically at the beginning we created this program where like, okay, we're going to have all these volunteers, you know, Bates kids on Tuesdays, you know, the men's soccer team from Bates on Thursdays, women's on Tuesdays, you know, but what ended up happening was on certain times, some people couldn't show up, and I'm left holding the bag. And it doesn't look organized, because, you know, you want to show up, run your session, knock it out. So basically what we did was we backed off on the complexity of sessions and simplified them so that I was the only one that absolutely had to be there. Because our number one thing was the show must go on. So we wanted to create a model with the fewest number of variables that could keep us from running programming. And, you know, when people walk in, they're seeing 30 to 40 kids that they're used to seeing getting in trouble and acting badly in schools. And they walk in and one guy walked in, turned to me and he goes, "This is a miracle." And as soon as he said that, I was like, okay, this is a man from the community. And, you know, he went to Lewiston High School, he played soccer, and he's got a great job, education. He did it right. He did it the right way. And he saw this and he goes, "This is a miracle." And as soon as he said that to us, I was like, okay, we're on to something special here.
Yeah. I think it's really cool to get the college involved, because it shows those kids that there's something more, you know, that they can aspire to. Obviously, you know, you talk about all these pieces of, you know, the behavioral aspects and the socioeconomic aspects. Obviously, higher education is extremely important in this country, and the more that we can get those from kind of the backgrounds that you're talking about, kind of those the no or low income backgrounds, to be able to be successful academically and get into those backgrounds. Hopefully we can kind of raise that level in the country.
Right. Yeah, it's like I said, I feel like I used to be a soccer coach, and now we use soccer to do life skills. But it's like the expressions on these, because I'm from North Carolina. I'm from the South. I know what racism looks like. Obviously, I've got white privilege, obviously. But I feel like I have a pretty good sense of what racism looks like. And I've never seen anything like it where you know, Lewiston, Maine right now, there's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of lack of communication. There's a huge opportunity. That's why we're so happy to be there, because, I mean, in my mind, every challenge is a huge opportunity. And the fact that it's a really challenging situation is just an everyday reminder, you know, this is a good fight. This is where we need to be. This is where we need to be, you know, trying to invest in kids in the community. Because in my mind, if you're going to try to sort of heal and grow a community, you start with the youngest so that they come up. But obviously it's going to be 10 years before they get that, but really excited.
So you started really kind of focusing on the Somali refugee population there. Have you seen it continue to grow to some of the other socioeconomic groups?
Great question. Yeah, we came up here with all these buzzwords, you know, immigrants, Somali, refugee, this, that, and the other thing. And then we found that like the town of Lewiston doesn't want to hear about that. You know, it's an awful thing, but there's some awful things going on up there. And it's, you know, it's kind of the equation. You had a low socioeconomic town that's not diverse at all. Then you add an incredibly diverse group that's also not doing well with money. Like, I mean, the four places that the Somali populations kind of landed were Portland, Maine, very forward thinking, very well socioeconomically or economically and politically. Burlington, Vermont, same sort of mold. Minneapolis, Minnesota, sort of same mold except bigger. All those three cities have great resources. They're very open-minded and they're very inclusive and open. Obviously, those are massive generalizations. Lewiston doesn't have the money, doesn't have the base, and it's awful. I actually taught the young lady whose dad was murdered 2 summers ago at Kennedy Park. So I heard about that story all the time, and that was race-based. So there's a lot of work to be done. So I couldn't be happier as to where I am working with these amazing people. You know what I mean? It's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah. So obviously you guys are indoors and you're using futsal. You know, obviously we have our college team play futsal, but it's not a game. Obviously, it's a very different game from playing soccer outdoors. And um, how how have you kind of gone on a journey as far as learning what you can teach through futsal?
Awesome. Thank you for that question, Reed. So when I was at Chowan, Anson Dorrance at UNC reached out to me because he's very interested in futsal as well. And so he wanted me to kind of, you know, poke my head around in North Carolina, visit a couple schools that were doing futsal intensive programming. And he basically wanted to kind of, you know, see what's going on in the state of North Carolina with futsal and see who the mad scientists were that we could kind of, you know, tie into them to get some of that, you know, really specific futsal knowledge in North Carolina, because Anson really thinks that futsal is kind of the wave of the future for player development, especially. So he's somebody that you might want to invite onto this as well. That was kind of my introduction to futsal, because no, it's not actually. When I was out in Utah, probably in 08 and 09, futsal for whatever reason I think it's big in little pockets out west, and so we started playing futsal when I was in Utah. I didn't really understand it. We played it, but I wasn't coaching futsal. I was an outdoor coach coaching indoors, calling it futsal, but that's not really futsal. But that's what I was doing, and so I loved it just because obviously the ball to player ratio, and just the creativity associated with it, and just no time to take intellectual breaks. There's so much accountability. I loved it. And then we came back, and just like you, when I was at Chowan University, back when we were in the same conference, um, so the person I ended up thinking that was a mad scientist genius, a guy named Coach Guillermo Uribe down in Charlotte. He does Barefoot Football Club, amazing. So he invited me down to Columbia to look at what they do down in Columbia. In Columbia, a lot of people think they play futsal in Columbia. They play futsal, but they basically, in Colombia, and I'm sure it's the same in other countries like Brazil or whatever, but it's like these languages or dialects of soccer. So do they play futsal? Yes. But they also play soccer volleyball. They play soccer tennis. They do capoeira for the hips and the balance. And, they do freestyle. The world, Boyka, the World Freestyle Championship, was there teaching our students how to juggle. And so obviously we brought that all back. So I don't go down to Columbia necessarily to study futsal. I go down to Columbia to study all the different types of languages or dialects, and futsal is one of them. They play 11v11. They play on all the different surfaces. They play overhead. Like, they just play so many different types of soccer, and that's kind of that passion of all the different ways of seeing this round ball and all the different sizes and bounce abilities. So we brought that back to Chowan, and we did that in the off season, and the player development was off the charts because it was more like to me, it's like 3v3 basketball. You're never sitting around picking your nose, picking daisies, waiting for the ball, taking a break intellectually. So you're constantly, your brain's always firing your decision. To me, it's the decision making. The executive function is just off the charts because you're never more than one pass away from the ball. So you constantly have to be, dealing with angles, vision, communication, being linked in, thinking of the next pass, whatever. But there's no time. So there's no time, there's no space, there's no breaks, and the slick floor is just marvelous. Most kids learn how to play soccer on a crappy grass field where it's almost impossible to move the ball. But on a slip floor, you have dominant touches on the ball. It's all that soul touch. So, to me, it's magic. And especially in Maine, I got no snow, no snow days when you're indoors in a gym. But it makes things harder because you gotta compromise. The cheerleaders are before us, the rollerbladers are after us, But that's an opportunity to connect with those coaches and those kids as well. So it's all good, man.
Yep. So you talk about you have like 30, 40 kids inside of a gym space. You talked about and you talked about simplifying your sessions, on the soccer side of things. What are some things that you've tried to do to kind of maximize space and effectiveness?
It's been a long, a lot of rough drafts, I guess, a lot of editing, but I think we have a pretty good model now. And like everything in my life, I've stolen from the best. So we start with, and obviously time is an issue. This community doesn't show up at 5. Some kids show up at 5:05, some show up at 6:05, and they're like, "What? I'm late." And you're like, "Yeah, you're an hour late. You just missed practice." So what we do is we have a rolling start. So as soon as they get there, they fill out a sign-in sheet, and that's their school, their name, 1 through 5, how they felt about this, how they felt about school that day, with a little smiley face at 5 and a kid losing his mind at 1. So they just circle 1 quick. What's a soccer goal for today? Quick. And then what's the toughest part of your day today, and how'd you get through it? That's the meat. So then they line up, and then they check in for about 30 seconds each, and then boom, they're off playing small-sided. And most days we play 2v2, 3v3, 2v2+1, something like that. So they're getting touches and decisions without even thinking about it before practice starts, and they're not being coached. And that allows kids to come in late, and so we just check them in as they come in. And so the kids that show up on time, boom, they're out playing immediately. So they're getting probably 200-300 touches, 200-300 decisions before practice even starts. The downside is that takes time out of practice. So then we move on to we clean up everything, because we call that street soccer or pickup soccer. They have to create their own goals, their own dimensions. They have to decide who's on which teams. They have to find a ball, and they have to referee themselves. That's like 10 social skills in there, and that's something I never even thought of.
Yep.
There's this amazing social emotional piece associated with it that you don't even have to really think of, but you have to manage them a little bit and help them, give them ideas. And that's one thing we never do. We never tell a kid what to do. Ever. We say, "What's going on? You want my help? Okay, you got 4 options. This is the way I see it. You can do this, 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 or this. What do you want to do?" So we give them that power to make decisions, because that's one of the things that schools are really hard. There's a power. There's never enough time. There's all this pressure, but we have the ability to give seeds, and we give them the space to screw up, because that's the best way to learn in soccer and in life, is by trying and making mistakes and reflecting and then moving forward. So then they clean up on their own, and then we do mindful breathing, which is incredible. They all lay down with their backs down, so they look up, because when we started, they were all just facing each other, and the distractions were just all over the place. Now, the requirement is you're laying on your back, so you're looking up at the sky. And it's just opportunity to have your own time. A lot of the kids, 7, 8, 9, 10 siblings at home, so they don't get a lot of free time, not a lot of ownership of space. So they have their own space. And so for 5 minutes, we do the Headspace app, and they listen and they chill and they don't speak. And they just, we talk about a race car engine, most of our engines are going all too fast all day long. Let's slow them down. Makes you a better learner, makes you more, patient around conflict and frustration levels. There are all these great reasons to do mindfulness training. So after that, we do a mindful minute, because again, it's this constant balancing act between giving them the sort of medicine that we know they need versus them getting angry about not playing soccer. So it's always that balancing act. So we try to do, maximize our time, FaceTime. So after we do mindful breathing, we do a mindful minute, and we say, okay, guys, an adult or anybody has 60 seconds to make some sort of connection between the mindful goal for the week and something in school or something in life. And so, and the idea is 60 seconds, kids. Give us 60 seconds, and then we'll rock and roll. So we do that, and then it depends. Sometimes we have an hour, in which case we just play. And sometimes we have an hour and a half, in which case we do a 10-minute kind of a coaching block for 10 minutes. And then if we have 2 hours, we'll do 2 stations. Usually we do 2 10-minute stations and switch if we have a second coach. And if we have just one coach, I'll just take the whole group through the 2 different sessions. So if we have 2 hours, it looks more like a regular soccer session. But anyway, every day we do the small sided games to begin with. We always shut down and do the mindful breathing. We always do the mindful minute. And then the question is, right after that, there's between 0 and 20 minutes to do kind of classic small sided instruction, technical bits with decisions. And then the last 20, 30 minutes of every day, no matter what, we scrimmage as big as we can, either 3v3 or 4v4 with 2 fields next to each other. And the huge pivot there was that we're really proud of is at the beginning of our program, during those scrimmages at the end, there's a lot of passion involved. So if a kid got like a handball or a goal pulled back, or there was any argument, the arguments would get huge immediately, and the practice would be over because kids would be cursing at each other, their jerseys would be thrown off. And slowly but surely, we were like, guys, this is not acceptable. We got to think about different ways of doing this. Let's brainstorm. What do you guys think? And we tried a couple different things. But what we came to at the end was every team just needs a captain, and not just for the scrimmages at the end. So now what we do is at the beginning of practice, now the kids pick their own teams. And so that captain is responsible for his 4 or 5 kids behaving themselves all through practice. So it's, again, this constant layers of accountability and leadership. But the huge pivot was, okay, at the scrimmages at the end of the game, only one person's allowed to argue, and that's your captain. So as soon as that argument happens, and you see it in the world, Barcelona against Real Madrid, as soon as the ref blows the whistle, everybody comes running in, screaming and pointing and pushing. And that's what we're trying to get rid of. So now the rule is only your captain can argue. So as soon as there's a disputed call, the hardest thing is that, everybody has to shut up and back up, except your captain. And those captains, 2 11-year-old kids have to come together. What happened? What do you think? What do you think? And everybody has to stay back and stay quiet and let those 2 people come to a conflict resolution. And then we move forward. And ever since we did that, everything changed. Because now they're part of the process, they understand the process, and they understand how to manage and get through conflict. Now there's a handball, and they're like, hey, what do you think? Okay, next one. And if it happens again, I'll get the call next time. You ready? All right, let's go. Boom, done. And then at the end of practice, we always have a share out. Like, groups are you committed to? What volunteer work do you do in the community? What groups are you a part of? We do lots of social, emotional sharing out at the end of practice, just kind of as a culminating piece.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. The ability to get 11-year-olds to agree on anything is amazing. Especially each group. But the fact that you guys are able to kind of get that into play with the program there, I think that's awesome. That's the ownership and the ability to be a part of the process is huge for all levels, really.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's crazy. Like, on a daily basis, there's always more sort of conflict. And every time there's a conflict, you like shake your head because you're like, oh man, why can't you guys just get along? Because we got this wonderful skill to learn today. And then I'm like, you know what? The fact that they're stuck in that conflict, we need to stay there and learn how to resolve that conflict. And that's why I keep saying I used to be a soccer coach, because now I feel like I'm more of a life skills coach, but my bag of tricks is soccer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because once those kids learn how to resolve conflict, dude, it's amazing. Because every day this kid cursed him out, and that doesn't really actually happen that much. But this kid had an argument with this kid felt bad. There's just every day at practice, there's probably 5 or 10 sort of mini little fires or blowups.
Yeah.
But the magic piece is they won't leave.
Yeah.
Because they need the soccer. So no matter how bad it is, like theoretically, this has happened. Kid will tear their shirt off, curse everybody out, and they walk right to the door. But then they sit down and they wait. And that means they trust us, because then a coach will come over and will say, hey, what do you want to do? What happened? What's the best? What do you think? What do you want to do now? And they always come back. That's the thing. We got them because we have the ice cream, and they'll do anything for the ice cream. And that's our huge gift. Because if you think about it, think of all the inner city schools in America. There are not very many places where every kid has the same hook. This kid loves chess. This kid loves biking. This kid loves video games. But we're so lucky because soccer is something that a lot of people in downtown community absolutely live and die for. And that's what we're tapping into. Because if you've got motivation, you can go to the moon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just so much fun because towards, like I said, in the day to day, you get caught in the weeds, conflict, conflict, conflict. And every day, you have that perspective to say, wow, they really got through that well. But it really hit home at the very end. The last week before we got shut down, like 3 things happened. One was this kid, Simba, not the best player. His brother's an otherworldly player, but his body shape's not quite where he wants to be yet. And he's just not the best player out there, but he's one of the kids that's been improving more than anybody. Literally our last practice, the last 2 minutes of the last game, he pulled this move where he was faced up to goal. He did a soul turn behind him. So he still faced the defender, but he dragged the ball behind him with his right foot. But instead of letting that ball go and then chasing it down and hitting a shot lefty, he stopped the ball. After he did the soul turn and brought it back to the left side of his body, he stopped it and then brought it in front of him and nutmegged our best player and then stuck a goal. And I'm done. And that's the soccer piece. That tells me that we're doing the right thing soccer-wise.
Yeah.
But more importantly than that, 2 things happened socially. One was I walked out of practice and then I saw a car driving away and one of our kids picked up a rock and threw it at the car. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And I went back out and I checked, and it wasn't exactly a rock. It was like, I don't know. It wasn't like a rock that would have hurt the car anyway. But I said, hey, what's going on? Again, I start with, I'm not a teacher. I'm not a power guy. I'm here to help you. I'm your lawyer. So what happened? Let's talk about it, because that's not something that can happen. And he's like, oh, da-da-da. I was like, okay, well, I think, and again, I'm not telling him what to do, but ideas. So I say, here's my idea. I think you should apologize to the guy for throwing something at his car, and then maybe you guys will become friends. But it takes a lot of guts. And all of a sudden, the next day, that same car comes down, and he's like, he shocked me. It was Kassim. And he goes, yeah, I'll talk to him, coach. I was like, oh my God, that's so strong, because this is a grown man that was yelling at this kid, and then the kid threw something at his car. Yeah. So the old guy, the guy that was driving the car, I was like, hey, Kassim, do you want to talk to him or no? And he was like, yep. And he comes over, shakes hands with this guy. They start talking, and all of a sudden, we're good. You know what I mean? But it took that kid's strength and trust to come over and get through that, because that was probably a scary, scary decision to take that step towards that car and about to get yelled at, right? But he didn't get yelled at. He actually, we say the bridge was burned. I'm saying build the bridge, kid. Mm-hmm. So then, same day, 2 kids got in a physical altercation. And that's totally unacceptable. So the next day, come back, and I talk to both of them independently, and I say, look, you burned a couple bridges. We got some ideas here, but it's all up to you. But we can't have fighting. That's a non-negotiable. So I say, okay, you need to repair your bridge with me because you made me look bad. You may or may not want to apologize to the whole team because the whole team saw it. And you may or may not want to apologize to the kid that you got into it with. And he was like, okay. And so he's thinking about it. Then I talk to the other kid. Same thing. I'm like, you can apologize to me if you want. You can apologize to the team if you want. And you can apologize to the other kid if you want. And slowly but sure, they went and walked around, did their thing, took their time, and then they came back and they were like, yeah, I want to apologize. So first they both apologized to me independently. So that's the first bridge. Then they both agreed to apologize to the other kid. That was the second bridge. And then they both announced this and sort of talked it through in front of the whole group. And I was just absolutely floored, because they were safe enough to do that. And it was incredible, because what had happened was this kid had lost his 3-year-old cousin. The word on the street is that the hospital sent this infant home with the family. Things went wrong. The child ended up passing away. And this is his uncle, who's 12 years old. So is he allowed to have a bad day? You bet your bottom dollar he's allowed to have a bad day. He's supposed to be in a terrible mood. But so basically this kid's in a terrible mood at practice. Then the other kid taunts him during the game. You ain't nothing, blah, blah. And then the kid started whacking him. Yeah. So nothing complicated here, but they both, in front of the entire team, were like, the first kid goes, oh, if I had known that kid lost his cousin that same day, I would have never talked so much trash to him during the soccer game. And to us, That's huge. That's the gold on top. Then the other kid turned around and said, oh, he goes, well, even though my cousin died last night and I'm in an awful, evil place right now, even so, I shouldn't have attacked him physically. And I'm like, oh my God. So they both sort of showed that empathy and that thoughtfulness.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. That's amazing. I think that there's a lot of things that I feel like, obviously we're not going to necessarily talk all the way through it on this call, but there's definitely some things that I want to go back and talk to you about how I can start to implement some of this stuff with my college team as well.
that'd be awesome, man. I'd love to talk to you about that.
So, but yeah, I think what you're doing right now, it sounds amazing. You can tell in your face, and you can tell in the way you talk about it. It's your true passion, and I think it's an amazing thing that you're doing, and I really commend you for all the effort that you're putting in and continuing to try to make the world a better place, man.
Thanks, dude. I mean, I'm the happiest guy in the world because I know that every day I'm making the world better for at least one kid.
Yep.
And I have the ability to work with the most amazing people. Like you've been supportive from absolute day one. You never gave me any crap about this. You were always very supportive, gave me great feedback. Obviously we stayed in touch. I want to stay in touch with you forever, basically. I'm all about relationships. Yeah, I just love helping put kids, smiles on kids' faces, because these are kids that face racism and against the odds every day. So anytime we can provide a space and environment for them to grow and just smile, it's they're facing some tough stuff, but the whole country is changing right now. There's low-income programs for soccer popping up all over the country, so we're incredibly excited, and we want to, if our program is successful, maybe we scale it out to Portland and Burlington and Minneapolis or something, or other inner cities. But there's got to be a soccer passion. That's kind of like the main thing. But I mean, again, the idea is they have the passion, so it's actually teaching the school skills so that they can win state championships and get recruited. Because right now they've got the soccer passion, but there are not very many kids that are like every year, we don't have a lot of kids graduating Lewiston High School, going to college to play soccer. And I think once we start getting that, that's when we're really going to, kind of bring this full circle. Because right now, the soccer passion and motivation is over after high school. I mean, they keep playing soccer, but they're not using soccer to influence and change the way their life is going to look for themselves and their families, So I'm the happiest guy in the world, man, because, I don't know, you just get to work with kids every day and make mistakes every day and learn and get better and work with people like you, man.
Sure. Well, I definitely look forward to continue to follow the program, and obviously keeping up with you and seeing what you're able to continue doing. I got some other outreach people I want to put you in contact with as well. So
that'd be awesome, Reed. And like I said, life's a two-way street. So if there's anything I can do for you, please let me know, man. Let's keep it rolling.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much.
All right, man. Can't wait to watch the Peace College this fall, man. Keep doing an amazing job, Reed. You're killing it, man.
Thank you, sir.